Rita, I'm still hopeful and optimistic that maybe the Victorians will see some kind of sense and possibly they could get rid of Dan Andrews and maybe even get rid of the Labor government, because polls can be wrong, can't they?
Polls can be wrong, but I don't think these polls are wrong. But I think there is a lot of attention being paid to the seat of Mulgrave, Dan Andrews' seat. Been very safe. Labor hasn't really been challenged there. Got 55% of the primary vote last time around, about 63% of the two-party preferred. But this time, Cook is running, as we all know, the man who was just so terribly impacted by the whole Sluggate affair. Just a travesty of justice.
And just talk us through that whole thing again, because
this was a successful business that I'll say allegedly, but there's not much alleged about it. A slug was planted, and then.
And this was to shut down the business. So
that's it. And there was a competitor that was government-owned that could step in and take over all these rich contracts. So dozens of people lost their jobs, people lost their livelihoods, and this thriving business was brought to its knees. And I know there's a lot of former police officers who are very intimately involved in that case and know what happened, and who are volunteering their time to door knock for Ian Cook. This is how passionately people feel. The Liberal candidate there also, he's been seen on Sky News. He's a small business operator. I think he's a solid candidate too. And there's a few others there who are really going to challenge. And if there is a little bit of preference discipline on that side, Dan might be under a bit of pressure. It's a long shot, I know, for the sitting Premier, who's got a huge majority, to lose his own seat, but there's great efforts going there. I think everyone who lives in Mulgrave is probably going to be door-knocked about 10 times. They're probably going to be sick of it. But those people hold enormous power in their hands, because I think a Labor government re-elected without Dan Andrews is much better for Victoria.
Absolutely, no question of that. Bernie Finn, who I had on during the week, he's got now Adam Somyurek in his party, the DLP, and they are confident that Dan Andrews could be ousted from his seat. So let's see what happens. But extraordinary news. We now just when you think it can't get any worse for Victoria, we now learn that, sorry, Victoria, you are the capital for ketamine, for methamphetamines, for heroin. It's not a great track record, is it, James, for once the most livable city is now the most drugged up city in Australia? James.
Wonder, Rowan and Rita, that you have to wonder how much of this has to do with the huge mental health toll that was taken during the pandemic on Victorians by the Andrews government, who put them through the longest lockdowns of just about any place in the world. And we know there have been huge repercussions and effects of that, including on mental health. And you just have to wonder, this drug problem that's emerged, how much of that developed during the pandemic and in the wake of that pandemic, with people just self-medicating and trying to deal with the mental torture that was inflicted on them by that government.
Precisely, and this is a good reason, Rita, why Victorians must punish Dan Andrews. They must. If they know what their neighbours went through, they should be out there saying this has got to stop.
You're absolutely right. The most locked-down city in the world, Melbourne, has got that honour, if you can call it that, crippling lockdown, some of the most absurd restrictions. I mean, we can look back now, almost laugh, but they're not laughing matters. Things like fishing were banned, golf were banned, playground bans, IVF treatment for women were banned. Just illogical, harmful, often just cruel decisions. We locked out thousands of our Victorians in New South Wales, locked them out for months. These were quite often elderly people stuck in caravan parks, couldn't get home to get medical care, take care of their homes. And this happened under Dan Andrews' reign. But I will say one thing, with the exception of the playground ban and the IVF ban, the Liberals weren't exactly screaming about
there should have been a stronger
policies.
opposition. There's no question of that. There should have been a stronger opposition. We will be talking to a Liberal MP shortly in the show.